Hey, 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 happy Thursday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Yes, I'm Jeff McAleer, back once again as your host here at The Daily Dope, presented by thegaminggang.com. So, you know what? I wonder if wearing this shirt's design might be a little odd on video tonight. Although I guess I'm almost positive I've worn this shirt before. But yeah, I'm looking at the video. I'm kind of like, ooh, that looks a little weird. So I'll keep my fingers crossed that it's not too crazy. Anyway, this is the Daily Dope presented by thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the Grand Poobah. Yes. So welcome aboard. It is episode 304 of the Daily Dope. Tonight is Thursday, May 16th, 2019. Robert Moffat is chiming in chat already. Look at that. We've already got somebody in chat. So, good to see you, Robert. Golf shirt? No, it's this is sort of a golf shirt. I don't actually play golf, but at least I haven't played golf in years. But as you can see, there is chat available if you are watching live on YouTube. It is not on screen. It's one of the ways that I keep some of the stranger commenters at bay. But I do pay attention to the chat. So if you want to say hello, or maybe you've got a question, or you want to dive in a little further into Ghosts of Saltmarsh, because I'm reviewing it tonight, by all means, chime in. I will respond. So we will get to my review in just a bit. Lots of stuff going on. I've got some news cooking, some tabletop gaming news. In fact, it's all RPG news tonight. But I do want to mention, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you check out some of the videos on the Gaming Gang channel and you dig those, by all means, please subscribe. Don't forget, ring that little bell, because it will not only notify you when there is a new video, but it'll also tell you when the stream goes live within about 5 minutes or so. And of course, please tell a friend not only about the Gaming Gang channel, but also thegaminggang.com. In fact, you know what? Tell 2 friends. So Rob Moffat says, love the game news. Yes, loves the game news. So before I jump into the news, I do want to mention, still got the contest going. That's right. I am reviewing Ghost of Saltmarsh, and I am giving away the limited edition of Ghost of Saltmarsh if I can reach 2,000 subscribers. And there's only a few days left to do it, so I don't know. I will ship this anywhere in the world, and it's pretty easy for you to actually get in on the contest, as I put that back down. All you have to do is A, subscribe, and B, make a comment on any video on the Gaming Gang channel. Doesn't have to be this one. Doesn't have to be the Ghost of Saltmarsh first look that I did, the page through. It can be any of the videos from May 7th through the 20th. Then on the 21st, which is next Tuesday, I will announce the winner if I get to the 2,000 subscribers. So I don't know. Hey, Madman's popping into chat. Cool deal. Good deal, Madman. Good to see you. So actually, I should ask, Rob, I believe you're from the Columbus, Ohio area, or somewhere in that vicinity. Are you going to Origins? Are you planning on going to Origins Game Fair? Because I was kind of curious. So anyway, because if there are people who follow the show who ever want to get together at various conventions and do some gaming, I'm always up for it. So anyway, you just have to reach out. But anyway, as I was going to say, the contest, I'd love to give it away. But I don't know, about 500 subscribers shy right now. And the weird thing is, if everybody who watches this video and the preview, the sneak peek, the page through for Ghost of Saltmarsh were subscribers, boom, we'd be done. We'd be all set. But that's not the case. So fingers crossed, see if I can actually give this away. And I want to point out that these limited edition covers normally go for a fairly decent amount on the secondary market. Usually, as I knock something onto the floor, that's good. Usually around $100, $120. So Paul Nolan's popped in. Good to see you, Paul Nolan. So Rob Moffat says he's hoping to go to check out Origins. Flaming Hurons in chat as well. So got a good chat starting off already. So I've got some news. And I do understand there will be people who are going to be watching this after the stream because they want to see the review of Ghost of Saltmarsh. So, same thing kind of goes tonight as for like Wargame Wednesdays. I always point out, if you're not a fan of the tabletop gaming news or you don't want to see any of the tabletop gaming news, check out the show notes below because then you can skip right to the review. If you are watching, after the fact. If you're watching live, well, you're going to be sitting, hanging out. I'll get to it. Don't worry. I'll get to it. All right, so first thing I want to mention, I think the biggest news today was about Warhammer 40K, Wrath and Glory. If you notice, it's from Ulysses North America, Ulysses Spiel. And things were kind of odd as far as Wrath and Glory, because it disappeared. It disappeared from the Ulysses North America website, so there's no indication. And that was about 2 weeks ago, because I was getting some, I want to say it was Torg Eternity news, and I went to the Ulysses North America website, and there was absolutely no mention of Wrath and Glory. None whatsoever. And I thought, wow, that's really weird. So then, just a few days ago, it disappeared from Drive-Thru RPG. So you could no longer get it from Drive-Thru RPG, and you could not get even the old Fantasy Flight games. Warhammer 40K, like Rogue Trader and things like that, because Ulysses North America had the rights to actually sell those. Well, that's no longer the case because, as I mentioned, the big news today is Cubicle 7 is going to be taking over the license for Warhammer 40K, Wrath and Glory from Ulysses Spiel. Here's the dope. Games Workshop is pleased to announce that award-winning publisher Cubicle 7 Entertainment is to produce Warhammer 40K role-playing games. Cubicle 7 CEO Dominic McDowell, my pal Dominic McDowell, said Warhammer 40K is a huge chunk of our gamer DNA, so we are all incredibly excited to build on the long legacy of 40K RPGs. I've been a 40K fanatic since the first edition, so I'm absolutely delighted to bring our brand of role-playing to this amazing setting. The initial range of products will be revised. Yes, it will be a revised reprint of the Wrath and Glory core rulebook and an extensive range of supplements covering exciting new areas, as well as revisiting beloved old favorites. Cubicle 7 hope that their track record of producing beautiful and immersive licensed games that capture the feel of their settings, including Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, big thumbs up on that, will appeal to Warhammer 40K gamers old and new. Cubicle 7 is working with Ulysses Wrath and Glory's design team to deliver the titles already planned for the game. Ulysses will continue to publish the German language edition of Wrath and Glory, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, and the Warhammer Age of Sigmar role-playing games in partnership with Cubicle 7. So, if you didn't catch that, what they're saying is the German language editions of Warhammer, Age of Sigmar, Fantasy Roleplay, and Wrath and Glory will be produced by Ulysses Spiel. Cubicle 7's new license comes on the back of a year of enormous growth for the company, with a huge increase in staffing and capability to deliver its range of best-selling game lines. Pretty interesting news piece here, I have to say, because A lot of people, I actually was getting emails from people. I haven't said anything because I didn't know anything. I knew something was up, but I had actually just last night, between last night and this morning, I got 2 emails from 2 different people asking, hey, what was the deal? What was going on with Wrath and Glory? Seeing that I did interviews at Origins and Gen Con last year, so obviously, of course, that makes me like some sort of insider. Yeah, I didn't know anything, so I still don't know anything except for what I was told earlier this morning, and then we did get the official press release from Cubicle 7. So that is pretty cool, very very cool. I think that's pretty nice. Because I actually like the 4th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. Very nicely done. Here's the weird thing. What are they going to do with Wrath and Glory? Are they going to tear the mechanics apart? And kind of... Because some people really liked Wrath and Glory. I liked it. I thought it was pretty cool. But then again, I don't dig into the mechanics a lot of like role-playing games. I don't really critique the mechanics all that much, unless it's really screwy. Because I basically don't run games the way they're supposed to be run anyway. But a lot of people didn't like the fact that it wasn't really focused, right? So like the different Fantasy Flight Games releases, like you play Space Marines in this one. You were a rogue trader in this one. There wasn't that in Wrath and Glory. Wrath and Glory is pretty wide open. There's a lot of different aspects, a lot of different... archetypes that you can play. So, and some people didn't like that. Plus, the book was not necessarily put together the most intuitive way. But there were other people who really liked it because it was very easy to get people into 40K. It was not tons and tons of crunch. So I'm kind of curious what they're going to be doing. I assume Ross Watson is still working on it because he's been with the 40K role-playing games for 2 companies prior, so I wouldn't be surprised if he helps out with Cubicle 7 as well. I don't know. Once I know more, I will actually be providing the latest news. All right, so Madman says, happy with Cubicle 7 products, good quality stuff. Yes, always very good quality stuff. I know people were upset about the Warhammer 40K, or not Warhammer, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, the 4th edition, when they released the PDF, there were some errors and people were freaking out. I was like, it's not out in print yet. It's out. They're finding the errors, they're going to fix it. So, pretty cool, pretty cool. All right, so, and Lead Magnet's hanging out. I don't know if I had mentioned that as well. So, moving on to the next news piece. The latest bundle of holding is big. Or maybe I should say it's the largest. And here's the dope. Oh, actually, wrong news piece. There we go. Adventurer. This new collection of tabletop fantasy role-playing supplements and adventures includes the world's largest dungeon and world's largest city. So we're calling it, that's right, bite us, the world's largest bundle. A peerless 900-page mega dungeon published in 2006 by Alderac Entertainment, the world's largest dungeon has 1,600 encounters. A D20 system-based dungeon crawl that can entertain you for years. The city, with its 250,000 humans, dwarves, elves, humanoids, and others, fits smoothly in most fantasy campaign worlds. And this offer also adds Alderac's stunning 400-page ultimate toolbox, plus comprehensive D20 source books like War, Empire, Gods, Relics, Dungeons, and Dragons. Not Dungeons and Dragons, Dungeons and Dragons, to give you more than 4,000 pages of fantasy gaming goodness. The world's largest bundle, yeah. For just $12.95, you get all 9 titles in the starter collection as DRM-free PDF ebooks, including Ultimate Toolkit, the D20 source books Empire, War, Mercenaries, Gods, Magic, and Relics, and the scenario collections Adventure 1 and Adventure 2. Talk about generic. Talk about a generic title. Jeez. And if you pay more than the threshold price of $26.69, you'll level up and also get our entire bonus collection with 4 more titles worth an additional $75, including the world's largest dungeon, world's largest city, and a catchy pairing of 2 more D20 sourcebooks, Dungeons and Dragons. Interestingly enough, world's largest dungeon in PDF goes for like $40, so you get a pretty good deal on this. Do want to point out 10% of your payment after payment gateway fees will be donated to this offer's designated charity, the Electronic Frontier Foundation. So if you want some D20 stuff that you can hack apart, because I know D20 is like a bad word now. Get some excellent Alderac Entertainment Group action. Back when Alderac was doing RPGs, which it's funny. John Zinser over at Alderac really misses doing role-playing games because that's where the name of the company actually comes from. Alderac was the name of his fantasy world that he ran a campaign in. That's why it's Alderac Entertainment Group. Okay, so the newest supplement for Symbaroum, I believe that's how it's pronounced, is now available in print. I've got the dope on Indaros, the Darkest Star. The shimmering virgin white snow that had fallen during the night lay like a covering blanket over Indaros' filth. But guardsman El Gallo knew what hid underneath. Neither the snow nor all who toiled at scrubbing and decorating the streets in honor of the Duchess's wedding could erase the true rot, no more than they could wash away the shadows. My shilling is on the barbarians, his newly recruited colleague Arala muttered. El Gallo nodded agreement without really agreeing at all. That someone would try to transform the upcoming celebrations into a bloodbath was inevitable. Why couldn't I get that word out? But the candidates were so many he had a hard time picking a favorite. The elves, the refugees, and the fallen Templars were all equally close to hand. It felt as if the kingdom held its breath, as if all Ambrians believed that the alliance with the High Chieftain would smother the many fires that flared hotter and hotter among them. He was of a different opinion. All right, anyway. A warm welcome to Indaros, the aching heart of the Ambrian realm, and the stage where episode 3 in the Chronicles of the Throne of Thrones. Wonder where they came up with something like that. Plays out. This book features resources for both players and game masters, describing a new setting, introducing new rules, and presenting an epic adventure where the player's wits, as well as the character's abilities, will be pitted against truly daunting challenges. This features the adventure The Darkest Star, taking place during a fateful period in the history of the realm. An extended account of Indaros' history, activities, factions, and conflicts meant to be read by both players and game masters. 25 unique establishments where player characters may rest, eat, drink, gather information, or seek an audience with local dignitaries. A comprehensive chapter for the game master, describing what lurks beneath the city's surface, with plenty of plot hooks to develop into adventures or entire campaigns. Hey, Kabuki Kid's popping in. Good to see ya. An introduction to the noble houses of Ambria is also part of this. An in-depth description of ceremonial magic, plus plenty of additional rules, including new abilities, traits, artifacts, monsters, and adversaries. The 176-page print edition is available from Free League Publishing, from their website, for $36.47, while the PDF can be had for $14.99 from Drive-Thru RPG. Good deal. I have not taken a look at Symbaroum. I think that's how it's pronounced. It does look interesting. The artwork always looks really interesting. And it's Free League Publishing. Free League Publishing normally does some pretty cool stuff. I think this is, I kind of have the feeling it's kind of like a grimdark sort of fantasy role-playing game. It's just the impression I get, maybe with kind of a Germanic feel to it, or a European feel to it, kind of like maybe Dark Ages. I don't know. I have no idea. But like I said, Free League Publishing always has some cool stuff. I'm actually sharing a review of some cool stuff from Free League Publishing tomorrow. All right, and my final news piece. Beginning today and running through the end of May is a special Stygian Fox sale at DriveThruRPG. It includes all the company's releases, including their latest for Call of Cthulhu, Aspirations, and I will give you the dope after I take a sip. Aspirations is an anthology of articles and scenarios for the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game published by Chaosium Inc. and is a companion book to the horror RPG anthology Fear's Sharp Little Needles. Edited by Jeff Moeller and Chilton Proctor, written by Glenn Owen Barris, Adam Gauntlet, Simon Yee, Joe Krell, Jeff Moeller, and John Simon, with art by Dean Englehart, Lisanne Lake, Earl Gear, Badger McGinnis, and Stephanie McAlley. I think that's how Stephanie pronounces her name. She's actually, I want to say she's in charge of Stygian Fox. It's an exploration into extra cases and background supporting your modern horror gaming, taking its inspirational cues from Delta Green, X-Files, The Ritual, Mandy. Really? Inspiration from that song? The song Mandy? Really? All right. Okay. I'm joking. It's the movie. Yes, not the Barry Manilow song, Mandy. Also takes inspiration from True Detective, obviously season 1, not season 2. Although season 3 was pretty good. I enjoyed that. The book takes a mature look at the horror of human nature and its ability to be just as disturbing as anything from the mythos, with blood and its inhuman uses as its theme. The scenarios deal with unavoidable fates, dark secrets, and seriously bad choices made by the antagonists. What, am I in this game? As so often is the case, there are no winners when fate has trapped you in a dice game for doom or destiny. As such, please be aware that some of the themes are very mature and suitable for adult gamers only. Please take care as a keeper that your group is suitable for these adventures. So, starting today, it began today, and it runs through the end of the month. It's 25% off all of Stygian Fox's releases over at DriveThruRPG. I gotta point out, I have not had a chance to look at like a lot of Stygian Fox stuff, but I thought The Things We Leave Behind was awesome. It was excellent. It was really good. So I have heard good things about. I took a peek. I didn't have an opportunity to actually sit down and read through the whole thing, but Hudson and Brand. What is it? Investigators of the Obscure or something like that, which is set in like 1880s London. I took a peek through that. Looked really, really nice. Really, really, really well presented. I've heard a lot of good stuff. So by all means, check if you're a Call of Cthulhu fan, if you run Call of Cthulhu, or if you run similar horror-based role-playing games, definitely go to DriveThruRPG. Check out all the items from Stygian Fox that are on sale for 25% off. Of course, those of you who watch the Daily Dope a lot or visit thegaminggang.com already know that I am an affiliate of the One Bookshelf websites, which includes DriveThruRPG. So if you are going to head over, please stop at thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banners. That way, if you make a purchase, I get a little piece of the action. Very little piece of the action, but I do get a piece of the action. Okay, so that's it for the news of the day. Do want to share my Game Master tip of the day, which I tweeted out earlier, which did not get me a bunch of like super pissed off weird people jumping down my throat. Thank goodness. People don't know what the word politics actually means. But today's GM tip is invest in a thesaurus. Yes, that's right. Invest in a thesaurus. That way you can add some more zest and zip to the descriptions that you give to your players. I have found, thankfully, I have a pretty expansive vocabulary. That didn't sound right, did it? Well, yes, I have an expansive vocabulary. Sound kind of cocky. I didn't mean it to come out that way. Paul Nolan says he wants a piece of the action. Yep, little piece of the action from Drive-Thru RPG. I got an offer you can't refuse. But anyway, I find that, like, for an example, like, say, you wouldn't say the throne is giving off a weird glow. I mean, that's okay. You would want to say something like, an eldritch radiance is emanating from the throne. If your players don't know what the words mean, no big deal. So it's like, it's okay. I tell my nephew Cameron and his friends all the time, if I like say something while we're playing and you don't understand what that word means, just ask. I'm not going to sit there and be like, what are you guys, stupid? Because I think a lot of times nowadays, if you don't read, and a lot of people don't really read much anymore, if you don't read, your vocabulary kind of shrivels up. So, I remember as a kid, I was a voracious reader. I still read quite a bit. I listen more to audiobooks, but like I said, I was a voracious reader. And if it was like, I don't know what this word means, boom, I'd be at the dictionary taking a look, checking it out. Super pissed off weird people. Yeah, every once in a while I get the super pissed off weird people, Rob. That is true. Thankfully, not too often. Because if I did get them a lot, that would not be a lot of fun. All right, so what is coming up on the show? So on tomorrow's show, I mentioned I was going to be bringing you some Free League action. I'm going to be reviewing Things from the Flood from Free League Publishing and Modifius Entertainment. This is the follow-up to Tales from the Loop. The award-winning Tales from the Loop. So that will be on tomorrow's show. I had already mentioned Monday I probably will not have a live show. I'm going to try to have some sort of a show. Hey, Viper Dave, good to see you popping in. I'm hoping to have some sort of show if I can put it together, because a lot's going on this weekend. My mom's flying in tomorrow for my nephew Cameron's graduation. So the graduation is Saturday. Graduation party is Sunday. And I might be like dragging tail on Monday. So figured I should probably just plan ahead for that. Hey, and I'm not sure if it's pronounced George or Jorge, but we've got a new person popping in. I'm going to take a guess it's Jorge Rodriguez. Well, I know the last name says Rodriguez, but I'm taking a guess it's possibly pronounced Jorge. Watch it be like, no, dude, I prefer to go by George. And I'll be like, okay, sorry. But hey, welcome aboard. Got a new first-timer in chat. So, as I was saying, I'm going to try this weekend to shoot a review for Sergeant's Red Devils, the miniatures game. I've got some additional troop packs, as well as a couple of like little expansions as well. So I'm hoping to get that review done on Monday and post it up on Monday. I can't tell you for sure. Over the weekend, I am going to try to shoot a real quick standalone video, and we're going to take a look at the Brotherhood of Steel minis from Modifius Entertainment for Fallout Wasteland Warfare. So that's probably going to be a pretty quick video, but we will zoom in and take a look. These are resin, so I want to see what the difference in the sculpt quality is from resin to the PVC plastic that is in the core game, in the like starter set. And then I just got the new issue of Yeah magazine from my pals over at does it Tiny Metal Publishing do this? Or is it Flying Pig Games? I think it's Flying Pig Games. It's all Mark H. Walker anyway. But yes, Yeah magazine with MacArthur's Defeat as the featured game inside. So I'm going to shoot a standalone video for that too. Because Mark is actually a sponsor for our Wednesday show with Tiny Metal Publishing as well as Flying Pig Games. So on Tuesday, I will be back live. I will be reviewing Traveler Ascension from Daring Play Games. This is probably, I think I'll be the first person doing a review of this game. I don't know. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. It's interesting. I'll give you that much. Then, Wednesday show, I'll be reviewing Warfighter, the modern Special Forces card game from Dan Verson Games. Next Thursday, don't know. I don't know what's cooking on next Thursday. I have been told that the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th Edition starter set is in transit to me. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that maybe we'll have that in time, and that will be our Thursday show, because Thursdays I love to do role-playing games. So, yes, Paul Nolan's like, Traveler. and Rob Moffat's like, Warfighter. It's two great tastes in one. Not really. So, if you follow the gaming gang, if you watch the Daily Dope, you already know this is pretty much a not-for-profit endeavor. So, if you happen to like the website, if you like the show, if you like the channel, please consider making a small donation to Lil Bub's Big Fund and the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Yes, Lil Bub's Big Fund does provide grant monies to organizations around the United States who care for special needs animals awaiting adoption. Yes, these are animals that are waiting to find a forever home. These pets might be a little long in the tooth, like yours truly, or maybe they've got mobility issues. Maybe they're blind or deaf, or require medications every day. Regardless, these special needs animals still deserve the love that you can provide, and by supporting Lil Bub's Big Fund, you will help these organizations who help care for these animals before people like you and I open up our homes and hearts to our furry little friends. So, do want to mention, if you do make a donation to Lil Bub's Big Fund, shoot me an email. I know some people are like, hey, I made a donation, but I don't want to shout out. It's okay. That's fine. But if you want to shout out, please shoot me an email if you make a couple of bucks. I don't care. You don't even have to prove it. I will give you a shout out on the following show. Okay, so Paul Nolan says, I still have all my old Traveler books. Kabuki Kid says, me too. I do not have mine. So I've got scans. I've got or maybe they're PDFs. I had the old black box. I was one of these guys back in the day, back in the early 80s. Late 70s is when I started getting into role-playing games, but it was really when I got into high school, so 1980-ish, fall of 1980, and I joined the Gamers Guild. That was the club I belonged to, is when I really started getting more and more into different games, and I would just go, and thankfully, I started working when I was 13. I wanted to make extra money. So I used to have some extra scratch. So I would go to I'd go to the hobby shop or to the game store, and I would pick up whatever floated my boat. I remember picking up the Traveler books. I remember picking up the box set and a couple of the standalone books, and I actually went over to my grandmother's house on my dad's side, and I spent the night there, and I was reading through the books. Yeah, pretty wild. See, I was only like 14 years old. Hey, at least I can remember those things. So, all right. I know folks are tuning in because they want to see my review of Ghost of Saltmarsh from Wizards of the Coast. It is for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. This 256-page adventure supplement does arrive on May 21st. It will carry an MSRP of $49.95. Is it 99? I forget. I could have swore it's $49.95. I thought Wizards of the Coast tends to do the 95, not the 99. So we are gonna move on over to the other camera here. I'm gonna take a quick sip, and we are gonna get down to the nitty gritty. Nitty gritty. Why could I not say it was like nitty gritty? Yeah. Yes, I treat English as if it's a second language. I really do. Really do. All right, so just last week, we did page through. We looked through the whole book, kind of chatted about it as well. I am going to kind of do the same thing. We're going to page through the book once again. I'm going to talk about each of the adventures, each of the sections that are in here, kind of give you my thoughts as well, and also point out that there are spoilers. So if you are a gamer and you are hoping that your dungeon master is going to run Ghost of Saltmarsh or some of the adventures from Ghost of Saltmarsh, then thanks for stopping in. See you later. Bye. Because you will probably have some of these adventures ruined for you. So, go back to the flavor text on the back. Adventure on the high seas. Nestled on the coast of the Azure Sea is Saltmarsh, a sleepy fishing village that sits on the precipice of destruction. Smugglers guide their ships to hidden coves, willing to slit the throat of anyone fool enough to cross their path. Cruel Sahagin gather beneath the waves, plotting to sweep away coastal cities. Drowned sailors stir to unnatural life, animated by the cult of a forbidden god, extends its reach outward, from a decaying port, hungry for fresh victims and willing recruits. While Saltmarsh slumbers, the evils that seek to plunder it grow stronger. Heroes must arrive to keep the sea lanes safe for all. So, if you play all the adventures, it's going to take characters from 1st level to 12th level. There are also rules inside and DM advice for ships and sea travel, as well as deck plans for various vessels. And an appendix provides rules for the new and classic monsters in this adventure. So, one thing I will point out, Paul Nolan's like, yeah, spoilers. I will point out that all the adventures that are in this book appeared previously, dating all the way back to 81, which would be Ghost of Saltmarsh, the first one, up through, I think it's 2006. And they are updated for 5th edition. There are some changes to them as well. So it's not as if Wizards of the Coast is just reprinting, like page for page, the same exact stuff that had already been published years before, either as modules or as articles or adventures, I should say, adventures in Dungeon Magazine. So Jay Gold is a new person arriving in chat. Good to see you, Jay. Jay Gold says, I'm about to run this campaign for my D&D group. So we're going to pop through here. We're going to go through the content. So first off, we got a little bit of an introduction. We've got all the credits from the originals, right? I can zoom in for a sec to show you. I always love to give people credit. But, sorry, I just cannot sit there and be like reading all of these names out. So sorry about that. Sorry, folks who worked on these adventures before. Let's zoom back in. There we go. All right. So the first thing, we get to Saltmarsh. So this is something new. This is something that's been created for this release. So if I think it's Kabuki Kid. Here we go. Kabuki Kid's talking about how they loved the series back in the 80s. If I remember right, I think Kabuki Kid was pointing out that U1, that was a module that Ghost of Saltmarsh was. They really didn't give you any detail about the town, which is not unusual, because this was a module that came out in 1981. Ghost of Saltmarsh, not this part here, came out in 1981, and it was not unusual for D&D adventures to just kind of really gloss over some of the cities and towns and things like that. The Daily Dope and great chat. That is what is good in life, says Paul Nolan. Thanks, Paul. And Nefarious Coel is popping in. All right, so anyways, so we get the first chapter. It's talking about Saltmarsh, and it gives us a bit of a background. So Saltmarsh is kind of like this, you can't really say backwoods, right? With a coastal town, can you? I don't know. Yes, Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh. Thank you, that's it. Thanks for pointing that out, Nefarious. Anyway, I was gonna say, so it's kind of like a backwoods coastal town, and it's part of this this, I don't want to say empire, I guess we'll say nation that's been fairly warlike, and they've kind of been getting their butts handed to them. So they've decided, rather than fighting with their neighbors to the north, they're actually going to focus more on the south, and there's pirates and things like that. And some of the folks in Saltmarsh aren't real excited to have this sudden new exposure, or having being in the spotlight per se. So we get into some of the politics and the factions. There are 3 factions. 2 of them are fairly open about what they're trying to do, and 1 is behind the scenes. So we got the traditionalists, who are basically, hey, we don't want things to change. We want things, the Furious Koal says, instead of backwoods, sidewoods. So instead of having changes with new people coming to town, and there's dwarves who are working on building a mine, they want things to just kind of stay the way they've been. And then you've got the loyalists, who are loyal to the king, who are, oh no, we want all this. We want to become a much bigger part of the empire, nation, whatever you want to say. So we get some examples of some events from each of the factions. We get the breakdown in stats for the leaders, or the important people who are in these factions as well. And then there's also the Scarlet Brotherhood, which are actually evil, and they're just plotting against Saltmarsh, period. So we've got that. So it talks about a little bit about the town itself, commerce. We get different rumors for various different areas. And of course, we got a pretty cool map. I like this map. I thought they did a nice job with this map here. Got a breakdown of the important areas of Saltmarsh. So this is just a town. This isn't a big city or anything like that. But I do appreciate the work that they did by creating it. They give you a good amount of detail about the town. About 25 pages or so. I had to laugh with his artwork here, because that, I swear to God, that looks like, isn't it? Now, okay, so I'm going way back. So he does makeup effects and things like that, but he was also the guy who did all the makeup effects for Dawn of the Dead. Isn't that Tom Servino or something like that? That kind of looks like him. I swear, I was like, looking at that artwork, I'm like, I wonder if they used him as an inspiration. So we get some points of interest. We get different areas. We'll get some random encounters for both the forests. We get the forests here. We've got a marshland out this way as well. So we get a nice area around Saltmarsh also. And we get this layout. We've got this map here. It's going to show us where various different parts of different areas that are going to come into play in the different adventures will take place. Got to keep in mind, the whole Saltmarsh campaign is 3 adventures. It's 3 adventures. So even though we've got more than those 3 in here, some of them have been adapted a little bit. So if you want to run it all as a big campaign, you can do that. Looks like the actor playing the Irishman in Braveheart, the dude with the Glasgow grin. I know exactly who you're talking about. I don't know the actor's name, but yes, I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah, a little bit. I still think he looks more like Tom Servino, though. I don't know. Hey, at least I got to point out, and I'm not knocking Pathfinder, and we are actually going to get to see a lot of Pathfinder 2.0 stuff in the future. I still like D&D's artwork better. It's just, I don't like that cartoonish look to the Pathfinder. And then like the huge swords and stuff, it's like straight out of Japanese role-playing games. It's like, yes, Greyhawk, Keoland, location U4123. Yes, because that's originally where this was set, is Greyhawk. which is kind of almost like verboten now with Wizards of the Coast. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's like they just try to stay away from anything that's like really too Gygaxian, I guess. So anyway, so as I mentioned, we've got some random encounters for the various different areas. One thing I think is kind of interesting, in the Dunwater River area, in the Dunwater Adventure, there is a young black dragon, and the young black dragon is also on the random encounters chart. So it makes you wonder, is it supposed to be the same young black dragon? Because I would think it would be. But there's no note saying, oh, hey, by the way, this young black dragon is actually from the Dunwater Adventure. So Nefarious Coel says, even though Pathfinder's artwork is more detailed, it's more cartoonish. Yeah, a lot of it's kind of meh. I have seen some that is a little more realistic and really well done. But yeah, for the most part, it's usually sort of oddball. Kind of oddball to me. Like I said, I don't know. There's something about it too, where it's like their characters seem to just be like so over encumbered with junk, and it's like, okay, I can't understand how anybody could be like delving through dungeons and stuff like that with all that crap. So, all right. So anyway, so there's also some discussion here of utilizing the adventures as far as putting it together as a campaign. Also, there's some information about, hey, do you want to take these adventures and actually tie them together with the reprinted adventures from Tales from the Yawning Portal? So I thought that was kind of cool. We get some new backgrounds for characters. I thought this was very nicely done, because we get quite a bit. There are quite a few here. It's not just, one or two. And we get some sailors, Outlander. We get a shipwright. It's like, really? Okay, cool. Hey, Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review has popped in. Good to see you, W. Or I'll say you and you. I guess I'll say W. Okay, so now we get into The Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh, which is the original adventure. It came out in 1981. This was the first UK conceived, I guess we'll say, module that was published by TSR. U1, U2, and U3 were all pretty much from, what are we talking about? I think it's 81, 82, and 83 they came out. So The Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh, real quick, I'm not going to go into all the details about every one of these adventures. It's an introductory adventure. It's for first level characters. It's supposed to be a haunted house. There's more background and more ways for you to kind of incorporate this adventure into the info we've got about Saltmarsh that kicks off the book. So, and I can tell there's been some polishing done on the adventure as well. Were there 2 UK series? May have been. I know the U series was the first time that TSR published anything that was primarily written by like people over in England. So, and the Giant series, was the Giant series? I don't know. I am honest. I mean, I honestly really didn't focus on it. I do know for a fact, though, that the U1 was the first time that they were publishing something that had been really conceived outside the United States. So anyway, so it's an introductory adventure. Basically, there's this house that's supposed to be haunted, and there used to be an alchemist who lived there, who was like really weird and things like that, and he disappears without a trace, and it's been, sitting there empty for like 20 years, something like that, and it's supposed to be haunted, and people see weird lights, and they hear shrieking and screams and things like that. So we get a little bit of the information about U1 right here. So the adventure is actually broken up into two parts. It's broken up into the characters investigating the haunted house, and the second part is, okay, so they're investigating the, I don't want to give it away, like, just tell you what it is. So they're investigating the house, and it turns out that there are no ghosts there. There aren't any ghosts. It's smugglers. Smugglers are using the house, and of course they're like trying to scare anybody away. It's sort of like Scooby-Doo, right? Little Scooby-Doo. And there's they've got a wizard, and so on and so forth. So eventually the characters will learn that it's really not haunted. There are a few items in here that I am not overly familiar with the U series originally, so I don't know if they were added or not. So I might, I'm going to probably refer to Nefarious Coel or Kabuki Kid on this. There is, the players actually do run across the skeleton of the alchemist who is reanimated. So I don't know if that was in the original adventure or not, because I could have swore that the original adventure, it was just the smugglers, the pirates. But so that's in here. There's also an NPC who's been tied up and locked in one of the rooms, and he's just there to throw a wrench into the character's plans. He's supposed to be pretending that he had been captured and they saved him, and he's pretty much there to try to create incidents and try to dissuade the characters from continuing to investigate. And then, if things aren't going well, then he will actually attack the characters. So Kabuki Kid says, I don't remember the alchemist. Yeah, like I said, I don't. It seemed to me like, and here it is. Here's the skeletal alchemist. To me, it seemed like, if I had remembered correctly, because I never had the U series, but I do remember seeing it and kind of paging through it. I don't remember that. So maybe that's something that's brand new in this. So one of the things that I'm going to point out, I'm going to show off this map here. One of the aspects in the adventure is there's supposed to be like a trail that you can follow through, almost like like footsteps in the dust and stuff like that. But it's another one of these. Well, you got to make your roll. Your character's got to make a roll to be able to see it. And then it's just referred to in the keyed areas. It would have been nice, to be honest, if they had just shown the little trail on the ground floor, and kind of, because it's sort of like when it pops up in the keyed areas, it's kind of like, oh yeah, that's right. So yeah, that's there. It doesn't like stick with you, and it's also kind of goofy because it's like every room you go into that has this trail, it's like once again you have the opportunity to pick up the trail. See, now I'm one of these people, I am not really big into these like skill checks and stuff like that. I'm all for saving throws. I'm with that. I'm okay. But I am not into the skill rolls, like the perception or survival and stuff like that. And it's like, oh well, if you don't make it, guess we're not playing Dungeons and Dragons tonight. Or even worse is the fact where it's like, okay, so if nobody makes their rolls, they'll eventually get whatever it was from an NPC. They'll get that piece of information, or maybe they'll get that item or whatever. To me, it's sort of like, well, then what was the point of having these rolls in the first place? Just give it to them. So that does rear its head throughout this. So anyway, as I mentioned, so the first part is we've got the haunted house. It's not haunted. So Scooby and the gang figure that out. And then the city council asks the players, the characters, I should say, to take on these smugglers, because I figure, well, you got rid of the smugglers who were there at the house, but Kabuki Kid says I have all the TSR first edition modules. Nice. There are a few that are out there that are extremely valuable because they were printed in such small runs. But anyway, so they basically convinced the characters to try to tackle the rest of these smugglers. So that is what the second part of the adventure involves. It's the Sea Ghost is the name of the ship. And basically what the players are trying to do is they're trying to take out these smugglers. Now, there's certain things that they'll learn in the first part of the adventure that they can utilize against the smugglers later on. Problem is that if they don't run across these things or they don't put two and two together, it becomes a little tougher for them to take on these smugglers later on. So, yeah, the RPGA modules are pretty rare for D&D. So anyway, so basically the fight is brought to the pirates, the smugglers, I should say, and you have a battle there. So, hopefully, the characters are able to take out these smugglers. They're going to actually run across some lizard men, as well as a sea elf, whose name is Oceanus. It's like, oh, that's not very original, huh? So it's like, yes, there we go. Talking about the Palace of the Silver Princess. Yeah, that was some bizarre artwork in the original. But anyway, so they're gonna run across these lizard men. They're also gonna run across this captured sea elf, which is actually going to help transition into the next adventure, which was actually U2. So Danger at Dunwater actually is from, what is it, 1982, I believe? Yep, 82. So this is actually the second part of the U campaign, the U series, there's the 3. So what happens in this one? Now, I really like this one. I really like this adventure because basically the characters find out that these lizard folk are actually purchasing weapons from these smugglers. So of course the city council of Saltmarsh are like, whoa, hey, what's going on here? You know, they're worried that these lizard people are going to attack. They're going to attack Saltmarsh. So they send the player characters as envoys to meet with the lizard folk. So this is a game, this is an adventure which is really geared towards social. It's more of a social game as opposed to a lot of combat. And I really, really appreciate this adventure because if your player characters decide they're going to go in like guns blazing and just start attacking everything, then they're going to lose. They're not only are they probably going to see a TPK, they're also not. The adventure is going to they're going to fail the adventure. So, because effectively what they're trying to do is they're trying to get an audience with the queen. The queen, the lizard people are actually gearing up for an attack against the Sahagin. All right. So you and you's got to run. All right. Hey, thanks for stopping by. Catch you next time. So anyways, so that's what they're actually gearing up for. They're not interested in attacking Saltmarsh or fighting the humans or anything like that. The queen actually thinks that the humans would be like kind of useless in a fight. So basically what the adventurers are supposed to do, what the characters are supposed to do they're supposed to make an impression on the queen that maybe humans could help them out in their fight against the Sahagin, and have the lizard folk and the people of Saltmarsh actually create an alliance. So very, very interesting. like I said, I really, really dig the fact that, I mean, there's action in here. There's action. It's just the player characters have to approach this differently, and that was one of the things about the U series I thought that people were always really big on, was that it wasn't your standard. Oh, hey, look, there's that. It attacks us. Hey, look at that. It attacks us. Oh, hey, look at that. Oh, it's attacking us too. So, one thing that is kind of odd, that is a lot to cover. And if the characters aren't like fighting their way through this place, they're probably not going to encounter all the areas that are keyed on the map here. So, but I got to admit, it's got lots going on. It's kind of funny too, because there's like hatchlings, which are like little kids, like little kid lizard people that can kind of attach themselves to the player characters. So it's like, yeah, all right, I got a kick out of that. I am one of these kind of game masters where I'll throw stuff in with like little NPCs that maybe they're not really like it's not a big deal in the story. They don't play like a huge role, but the characters get attached to them, and then I yank the rug out. It's usually called Cthulhu stuff. So, anyway, so we get all the keyed areas here. There's kind of a game to this too, where you have to, as a dungeon master, you're going to have to track what the players are doing, so you can add and subtract points to see if they succeed or fail in creating an alliance with the lizard folk queen. There is a side adventure to it as well, so if the characters really screw the pooch, there is also the opportunity that they can go and fight this giant crocodile that has been giving the lizard folk a lot of trouble, so that can kind of help them out. So, helpful goblin turns into tricksy demon, eh? Okay, so now we get salvage operation. So this is actually an adventure from Dungeon Magazine. So it's kind of funny. We're not going from, U1 to U2 to U3. Now we have some dungeon adventures that are in the mix. Okay, so we got salvage operation. Salvage operation is effectively this merchant who used to be like rich and famous, decided he was going to put a lot of his fortune, his riches, into almost like promissory notes, things like that. And he was sailing with his fleet of ships, and of course the ship that's carrying all that stuff got cut loose from the rest and was never seen again. And of course, so went the fortunes of this merchant. Now, he's no longer rich and famous, but he is still a merchant, and suddenly this ship appears. So he actually hires the characters to go and go check out the ship and recover the lock box containing all his promissory notes and stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of funny. Everybody's got to go back and forth talking about the weird artwork in what was it, Palace of the Silver Princess is the title. I always forget. Yeah. So anyway, so what basically this is, we get some backstory on what actually has happened to this ship. This ship was being used by cultists, and now there's like this crazed druid on board. Remember, I was just talking the other day about druids in history and how they were like not good people. I forget. It might have been Various Coel who pointed out, yeah, they had like human sacrifices and stuff. This druid kind of goes back to that. He's a throwback druid. So basically, what's going on here is this ship is kind of a menagerie of creatures. Yes, so it was nefarious. Good deal. So the players are actually, the characters are fighting their way through all these various different areas of the ship that have all these different creatures on it. It's a Mike Mearls adventure. It's not, I mean, Mike Mearls has done some terrible stuff. Not like personally terrible stuff. Some of his adventures I have not been a big fan of. This was okay. This is all right. It's a kind of a railroad for the most part. There is a giant octopus attack, which is pretty cool, but the sequence of the octopus attack is all plotted out every round, and so on and so forth. So not a terrible adventure, not a great adventure either. So, well, Kabuki Kid already pointed out that they own all the original first edition TSR modules, so that's a lot of knowledge. There's a lot of knowledge role-playing wise, I believe, between Nefarious Coel and Kabuki Kid. They usually are on the ball as far as just about nearly every role-playing game out there. So the next adventure we've got Isle of the Abbey, which is for about 5th level characters. So here's something else that kind of happens during this break from the U series. So the book is supposed to take the characters from 1st to 12th level, and it's kind of weird because, of course, you have the option that you can just, as the dungeon master, you can award levels to players whenever you want, as opposed to tracking all the XPs and things like that. But a lot of the adventures that kind of take up this middle area of the book, midsection of the book, they're all like for the same kind of level. So it's kind of like, so are you supposed to like stagnate the players leveling up or what? So Isle of the Abbey is actually a very unique adventure as far as I'm concerned. This is from earlier dungeon, I think 34. Yeah, okay, right there, issue 34. So this is definitely right there, first edition. This is kind of sandboxy. So, and I dig that. It's not a lot of railroading. It's basically, here's this location, this is what's going on, and I really dug it. I'm not gonna give a whole lot of weight to this adventure, because basically there's a lot of different things that can happen in this. So that's why I actually really dig about this. This is pretty old school. This is pretty old school D&D. We get a bit of a dungeon, nothing huge. So and it's pretty quick. It's pretty short. So it's basically it's given away right here in the name. You're exploring the ruins of this abbey. So this is, like I said, pretty short adventure. You could I would probably think, especially these days, probably get through this in 1 or 2 sessions. Then we get to the final enemy. This is U3, and this is where the humans and the lizard folk are going to war with the Sahagin. So this, of course, is going to be a lot of combat in this. There's a point where the players are going to have to like plot out their defenses and actually their tactics, what they're planning on doing. This has actually also been expanded out to have a like grand finale battle to effectively defeat the Sahagin and send them packing. So, which I don't believe is in the original adventure, in the original U3. So, one thing I do want to point out about the book also is, you'll notice we are getting a lot of gaming content. There's artwork. We've got artwork in here. We've got the maps and such. But it's not like sometimes we would see for, let's say 4th edition D&D, where you just had like all this artwork, all these like stat blocks. We had a lot of fluff all the time. You really did not get, at least in my opinion, I did not think you were getting your money's worth as far as gaming material. Here I really do think so. if you don't already own this stuff. That is one of the big keys that I will mention when we get to my final thoughts and my review score. So once again, this is another adventure where you're kind of tracking victory points for the player characters to determine how successful their campaign against the Sahagin actually went. So, like I said, kind of once again, this is kind of an old school throwback because we've already seen that in U2 you had to do kind of track points to see if the players could impress upon the queen of the lizard folk. And then in U3, basically, we are looking at having to score victory points in the battle. Yes, and Nefarious Coel says, I'm sure Rob understands victory points. Hey, you don't have to be like a war gamer to understand victory points. Victory points are like in like almost any kind of board game. They may not call them victory points. Every time I hear someone say D&D, I perk up. Then I learn they're talking about the Game of Thrones writers, is what Kabuki Kid says. Yeah, a lot of people are upset about that. A lot of people are upset about this season. I'm fine with it. It's like, I don't get worked up about this stuff. It's like, I don't own these intellectual properties. I'm not going to get bent out of shape about it. So, Chapter 7, we got Tamarot's Fate. I will be right to the point here. This is from a little bit later in Dungeon. This is from issue 106. So now we're at the point where we're starting to get into the adventures from Dungeon. And let's be honest here. Dungeon magazine had some real stinker adventures. For the most part, the vast majority of the adventures in Dungeon magazine were probably not the kind of adventures that I would run. A lot of times they fell into that whole, like I like to point out, the failed novelist syndrome, where it's like, oh, I'm going to pack all this backstory and all this fluff and things like that, and it just becomes so bloated, it's nearly impossible to run the adventure at the table. This is where we start getting into that. So I am not necessarily overly keen on this adventure here. The player characters are trying to find the ruins or the wreckage of this ship, so they find themselves on this island, and there are quite a few different locations that they're going to check out, including ending up going down underwater to find the wreckage. There's kind of a Lovecraftian take on this. There's like cultists and like deep ones and things like that. But all in all, I'm not necessarily a... so Robert Moff says, I keep getting D&D and D-Day mixed up. No, you don't, Rob. We know that. Anyway, I just... I didn't care for it. Not a big fan. All right, then we get to the styles, which is actually going to be for 11th level characters here. So there's investigation in this one. There's supernatural elements to this as well. You can see that the maps in that, as far as I can tell, these maps have all been the cartology. What is it? Cartography. I almost said cartology. The hell was that? The cartography has been redone. So these look, at least, I don't know. Like I said, I don't have these issues from Dungeon. I highly doubt that this is the kind of stuff that we would see. So quite a bit going on in this adventure as well. And cultists, more cultists again. I thought this adventure is okay. To me, the strongest adventures in this are from the U series, and then the what is the Abbey one called here? Isle of the Abbey. So Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh, Danger at Dunwater, Salvage Operations okay, Isle of the Abbey and the Final Enemy, Tamarot's Fate and the Styles, nah. But once again, these are more modern adventures where it starts getting to the point where it's yeah. So Nefarious Coel is saying a dungeon too far. So I see Rob and Nefarious are kind of going back and forth with combining World War II movies and Dungeons and Dragons, I guess, or fantasy role playing. So anyway, the last two adventures are more modern, where it starts getting into the there's just too much bloat, in my opinion. It's way too much bloat. Another interesting thing you'll see, even if you're looking at like the read alouds, right? So these areas are supposed to be read alouds. Some of these start becoming almost like walls of text. And the thing that I always find interesting is, now I don't know if this is like an internal memo, or if this is something that Wizards of the Coast had kind of released as far as running tournament games and things like that. But Wizards of the Coast has pointed out that any read aloud more than 3 sentences long is going to just put people to sleep. So bloat sells for more. Yeah, if you're getting paid by the word, which I think is one of the problems with some of the dungeon adventures. And I'm not saying in this book, I'm just saying overall, was like they must have been paying per word, because I mean, some of the adventures that I've seen, and I have not seen tons and tons of issues of dungeon. The ones I have checked out, or that I picked up way back in the day when they were actually on the newsstand, it would be like, the concept of this adventure is pretty good. Just the execution of the presentation is crap, because it'll be all bloated out. And I've said it time and time again that as a game master, and this is not just a Dungeons and Dragons thing, this is basically any role-playing game. If you are going to run a published adventure, that author has to provide that it can be used at the table. That's one of the things I talk about, that failed novelist syndrome. It's like, if I don't need specific backstory about certain things, I don't necessarily want them in that, because it has nothing to do with the adventure. So if, and a lot of times you'll run into that stuff where it's like, oh, and in this room, this and this used to take place, and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, yeah, it's a kitchen. I don't need to read 4 sentences about what used to go on in the kitchen. It has nothing to do with the adventure I'm doing right now. All right, so now we get into the appendixes. So we've got Of Ships in the Sea. So now we start getting into rules about different kinds of ships. So we've got galleys, we've got keel boats, long ships, rowboats, sailing ship, which it's kind of like, okay, so a sailing ship, what are we talking about? Like a sloop? Warships, which I don't know, what do they consider those? Galleys? But it just says gargantuan vehicle. And then we've got sailing ship is a gargantuan vehicle. Then we get into a discussion of officers and crew. Who are they? What are they? Kabuki Kid says, but maybe it's a very special kitchen. No, if it's just the kit. And you've seen this stuff in the various colors. A galley on a galley. No, it's just people are like so. Some of these authors of adventures are just so in love with their whole backstory and their setting and everything else that they just like vomit. It's like word vomit. And you're like, really? I don't need this. I don't need to know every last detail about the person who owned the cloak that's hanging on the peg that is basically not going to be used by anybody in this adventure. So Paul says, gotta love those kitchen adventures. Had Manus go on in the kitchen of the Hill Giant Chiefs. See, now that's different. Something's going on in that kitchen. There's somebody there. If I remember correctly, is it the half ogre chef or half ogre cook? And she attacks the player characters? I think she's a half ogre. Almost positive. So, Yes, too much backstory, word vomit. Yeah, I can't deal with that. We get a little bit about ships in combat, not a lot. I would have thought we would add actually some more information about ships in combat. Travel at sea, we get that as well. Get hazards. We actually get some crew conduct and conflicts. We get different random events that can take place at sea. So a lot of these charts, a lot of these tables and that, pretty cool. There's even like a random, you can randomly roll up the crew's names. It's like, yes, I'm Salty Liar. So, hey, and John Martin is in chat with us. Hiya, John. Sorry, you may have been hanging out for a while. I had not noticed you. So, welcome aboard. So, hey, so I like this information here. Most dungeon masters will be able to utilize this, especially if they're planning on running some games with pirates. Maybe the characters are kind of like privateers, or they have their own ship. Yes, Pinky has made her appearance down here tonight. Yes, she thinks I'm talking to her. Yes, Pinky, relax. All right, so then we've got some underwater locations. We get some kind of like adventure settings. So, for an example, wreck adventures. We get some wreck maps there. We get some areas, some adventure areas as well. So a good section. I like this section here. And then we'll actually get into some of the magic items. A lot of the stuff in the adventures are pretty standard monster manual monsters, pretty standard player's handbook and DM's guide magic items, things like that. There's a few different things, but not a whole lot. The cursed luck stone, which is what the skeletal alchemist is carrying, and people think you're supposed to try to kind of plant the idea in the players' minds that maybe it's a philosopher's stone. So you're not supposed to tell them that, but the clues around it are supposed to lead them to think that it's a philosopher's stone, and it's actually a cursed luck stone. So we get some of the new monsters. We get some NPC stat blocks as well. Once again, a little disappointed that we don't get this images of every one of these monsters. I don't know if that's a new thing now. It'd be one thing if you gave me a good enough description of it that I'd be like, okay, cool deal. But yeah, for some strange reason, a lot of the books that have the monster section are not sharing images or artwork for each monster. It's kind of a bummer. Personally, I would pay more and have fewer monsters in a monster manual, regardless of the game system that it's for. I would pay extra if I knew I was going to have artwork of each of the monsters or creatures or what have you. Then we get to the NPCs. Remember, I said the sea elf's name is Oceanus. I'm like, okay, it's not that original. Okay, so and these are all pretty much the main NPCs and newer monsters in that from the adventures themselves. And that is how we finish up Ghost of Saltmarsh from Wizards of the Coast for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. So as I pointed out, this 256-page adventure supplement does arrive on May 21st, and it does carry an MSRP of $49. I think it's $95. Almost positive. I know it's $49 and change. I think it's $49.95, not $99. So, what are my thoughts and what is my review score? So, I like Ghost of Saltmarsh. I gotta ding it a little bit. Not much of an index. There is no index, Nefarious. No index at all. Yep. Anyway, which actually dings it a little bit on the review score. So first off, I like the new stuff that's been added to it. I dig the setting and the about 25, 27 pages of background and information about Saltmarsh. I like that. I like how they try to tie all the adventures together into one long campaign, even though they don't all kind of fit easily into that. There are some that I would probably skip. Also, there's information in each of the adventures saying, well, okay, so what setting do you want to put this in? Do you want this in Forgotten Realms? Well, then you might want to aim this way. So I like that. The fact that it's all adventures and stuff like that that have already been out and they're being ported over to 5th edition, even though there have been modifications and changes and additions to the adventures. I'm not saying this is recycled, but because we only get a new adventure supplement every 6 months-ish from Wizards of the Coast, I would have liked to have seen new stuff. All new stuff. Not necessarily just, a repackaging of sea and, naval-related adventures. That being said, for the most part, the adventures are pretty good. I would enjoy running them. Like I said, the last 2 adventures that are kind of from later issues of Dungeon, I'm not overly keen on. But all in all, if you don't have the issues of Dungeon magazine, or if you don't have the U series, then I definitely would recommend picking up Ghosts of Saltmarsh. I especially like the 3 U adventures from that series because it's not standard D&D, modern D&D. It's the old school vibe. And the first 2 adventures of this series, there's not a whole lot of combat unless the characters find themselves screwing up. But so I like it. I do ding it because A, it doesn't have an index. I ding it a little bit because it is starting to bug me that we get these monster sections in books or monster manuals that are not showing us an image of each monster, and there's no detailed description so you can tell your players what it looks like. So I gotta ding it for that. And I do ding it a little bit because it is rehashed adventures, and there are some areas, some parts of the adventures where it's sort of like that whole weird crutch skill check. Like the survival or arcane knowledge, and it's kind of like if the players don't pass that roll, we're not playing D&D tonight. Or if they don't pass the roll, then they're going to get that information or whatever later on anyway. So it's kind of like pointless to have that roll. A little too much of that floating around these adventures as well. So I would say on a scale of 1 to 10. I do give Ghost of Saltmarsh a very solid 8.4 out of 10. I think it's worth the purchase. I enjoyed reading through it. I didn't have the issues of Dungeon magazine, so I don't have the U series, although I did remember a little bit about it. So yeah, I think it's very nicely done. One of the things that kind of worries me is and I've mentioned this before, and a lot of people don't realize this, but the team at Wizards of the Coast that is working on Dungeons and Dragons full time is pretty small. I gotta be honest, I think there's fewer people working at Wizards of the Coast on Dungeons and Dragons than are working at Cubicle 7 on their lineup of games. And you would not think that would be the case, but I believe it is. So I'm a little concerned that we're not seeing a lot of output of really new material. Like I said, it's good. It's an 8.4 out of 10, but I'm hoping that our next release for at least Adventure Supplement release for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons is going to be all new and kind of old school too, because you've noticed 5th edition has really been kind of gearing back, kind of veering back a little bit towards the old school vibe. So anyway, that is it for today's show. Do want to point out once again that I do have the contest to win a copy of the limited edition Ghost of Saltmarsh from Wizards of the Coast for 5th edition D&D. All you gotta do is be a subscriber, comment on one of the videos from anywhere from like May 7th to the 20th. Doesn't have to be a comment on this one. And I have to hit 2,000 subscribers. That's the big trick. But if I do hit 2,000 subscribers, I will choose a lucky subscriber on the 21st, and I will ship this anywhere in the world within reason. So yeah, I'm not going to send it to like Java or something like that. All right, so that is it for today's show. I will be back tomorrow with my review of Things from the Flood from Free League Publishing and Modifius Entertainment. So as I like to point out, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, please visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. But now you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Everybody in chat, thank you so much for hanging out tonight. You guys have been going back and forth and having a pretty good time. So unfortunately, when I do a review, it's a little tough for me to kind of like follow everything going on in chat, so I'm not trying to ignore everybody. So anyway, so if you join me in chat, thank you very much. Thanks for keeping me company. And of course, if you watched live or if you're watching after the fact, thank you very much for watching. Thanks again for watching The Daily Dope, presented by The Gaming Gang. If you like this episode, be sure to give it a quick thumbs up. And if you dig the channel, please subscribe. If you'd like to check out our previous episode, click right here. And if you want to check out a somewhat randomly selected episode, give a click right down here. It'll be like opening a box of Cracker Jacks. You just don't know what you'll get. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'm Jeff McAleer.